So eventually the current planting will get harvested and we'll need to move our next planned planting into the current planting spot. In other words, we'll need to move the next planting's information into the current planting's information, and our current planting will become previous planting. In AgNote there are two ways we can do that. First, we can move the plantings individually for each field. Second, we can use this batch tool, move next to current. But before we move the plantings, there are two conditions that need to be met. First, of course, we need to have the next planting planned. And second, current planting needs to have a harvest date. And one easy way to tell if the planting has harvest date, just by glancing at the list, is if planting does have a harvest date, this first line of text will be bolded. And of course it will say harvested. But like, for example, these two plantings do not have harvest date. Therefore, they're not bolded. So to move planting individually for each field, we will need to click on this first link. I will usually edit the planting. If the planting qualifies to be moved back, we'll have this checkbox available. In this case, move planting to the previous. All we need to do is just select and save. And the planting has been moved from current to the previous, and our next became current. Also, if for some reason we do need to move the previous back into the current, we just go to the previous, and again, if the planting can be moved forward, the checkbox will be available, move planting to the current. I just select and move it back. For example, this planting will not have that checkbox available because it simply can't be moved forward because the next planting's spot is already taken. Therefore, it can't be moved forward. So that's how we would move the planting individually for each field. A much easier way is to use this batch move next to the current. Let's just click on it. And in this simple dialog box, there's one form field. And on that form field, in this case, since this account has two companies, Desert Sun and High Hills, we'll see these two companies and they collapse. But if we expand them, we will see all the properties or all the plantings that can be moved. They do meet those two conditions. If they don't, they wouldn't be listed here. So we could select each field individually, that's one way, or we just simply select the whole company plantings like so. And let's also select the High Hills and save, and that will update the whole list and refresh the page. And now all the earlier planned next planting is current planting, except these two because they did not have that harvest date entered. But let's just enter it and see if we can move it. And if you notice, as soon as we enter the date, and since there is next planting in place, this checkbox is available. We can just select it and that will move it back. It's also worth noting what you see here in the current column, next or previous. All this information will be reflected in dashboards, and on reports. For example, if we would download this report, current row crop plantings list, it would list all these plantings. And if there is a case where we would need to move, for example, this planting back into current, and since there's nothing in next planting spot, we can easily do that and it will show up on that report.